Hi everyone, this is Amsterdam Comic Geek. Today I want to talk about the complete Ben Reilly epic Book 5 I'm reading at the moment. I'm reading this one digitally. I do have physical copies of this collection of trades, except for book number 5. 2 years ago I could buy most of the books for a good discount price, except for book 5, which was full price. Because all the other ones came cheaper, I figured the 5th installment would be discounted at a certain time as well. That never happened, and now the book is out of print. You can still buy the second Ben Reilly omnibus for about 80 euros, but that one contains book 4 through 6, and I don't want to pay that much money for material I already have in my collection. Besides, I'd love to have everything in the same format. It just looks better on the shelves that way. Because I'm curious about these stories, I decided to read the digital copy now and buy book 5 when it's reprinted. In case you're not familiar with the character Ben Reilly, here's a very short summary of the many comics in which he makes an appearance. Spoiler alert if you still want to read those stories. In the 1970s, Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy were cloned by the Jackal. Spider-Man fought his own clone, and we all thought the clone had died during that confrontation. However, in the 1990s, it appeared the clone had survived and called himself Ben Reilly. He returned to New York, and soon we discovered Ben Reilly was the original Spider-Man and Peter Parker his clone. So Reilly and Parker switched places, and Peter was supposed to live happily ever after with his wife, Mary Jane Watson, who was pregnant at the time. Of course, later we discovered that Reilly was the real clone after all, and Peter Parker was the real Spider-Man. These stories are collected as the complete Clone Saga epic and the complete Ben Reilly epic. A lot of fans didn't like these stories back in the day, and back then I only read a couple of issues. But about 8 years ago I read the whole Clone Saga from the 1990s, and now I felt it was time to read up on Ben Reilly's solo adventures. That's why I recently started to read book 5. In one of these storylines, Peter Parker gets mortally ill and might die. Now that I'm reading these comics in present day, I get a funny feeling. Spoiler alert, seeing Mary Jane pregnant and knowing what's in store for the couple in the near future, losing the baby at childbirth that is, makes me really sad. It's also weird knowing that in the end Peter Parker is the real Spider-Man after all, and Ben Reilly his legitimate clone. Still, the comic book artist and writer make me engage with the story. Especially the scene in which Peter asks Ben to take care of Mary Jane and the baby after he has passed away. And in the same issue, Peter dies. And that's what we are seeing now. Peter Parker dying of some unknown ailment in the presence of his pregnant wife and brother Ben. And it's very touching. This is powerful storytelling. Knowing full well Peter is going to survive this, I still get choked up when I see him die in this scene. It shows the strength of the art by John Romita Jr. with inks by Al Williamson. The characters act spot on. It's very powerful stuff. Of course, it's a bit of a soap opera, and yet these characters feel like real people. The next issue starts right after Peter has died. But then, all of a sudden, Peter comes back to life. So he hasn't been dead that long. Besides, I don't think there are comic book readers who really believe characters die. When they do, they always return later on in comics. And when it seems your hero is just a clone of the original Spider-Man, later that is turned around again. It was only a ruse to sell more comics. But these weird twists and turns are part of the fun of reading superhero comics. Anyway, so far so good. I'm going back to reading the book. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and read more comics.